What's up? This is your boy Lascel, the M.B.A. back at it again. Today we're going to cover some things. Everybody's heard about a toxic person. Everybody's heard about a person who is, and they've heard about these toxic relationships, right? So today what we're going to do is we're going to go over what is a toxic person. We're going to look at 5 signs of a toxic person. But before we get started, if you enjoy the videos, if you have, gotten some insight that has helped you through a tough period, please press like and then subscribe so that you don't miss any of the content that we put out daily, so that you can actually be up on your fix of Lascel, the M.B.A. So let's get right into it. So everybody talks about toxic relationships and toxic people. I think it's a form of rhetoric that goes around. A lot of people say, but they don't give much thought to what it is. So anything negative that comes with a relationship sometimes gets attributed to being a toxic relationship or a toxic person, right? One of the things that that some of the toxic relationships comes with forms of abuse. It comes with sometimes physical abuse as well as mental. There's a lot of cheating, there's a lot of things, but what you don't realize is that there may be underlying red flags that give you an idea that this person may be a toxic person. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go over 5 signs of a toxic person. And if you're in a relationship with this toxic person, or you're just really getting serious with a person who's toxic, this may be the point where you start detaching yourself from that person. So the thing of it is that toxic people, a lot of times they kind of disguise certain things early on so that you don't know that they have these negative traits that kind of suck you in. Then as time goes on, that mask starts to slip and they get a little bit more familiar. They figure they got you. So when you start seeing these things, not saying one thing, but any combination of them that you don't feel comfortable with, even if it is only one, actually, when you get to thinking about it, you might want to think about reevaluating that relationship and withdrawing yourself from that person. So, some of the things that we're going to go over. First thing, the first sign of a toxic person, the person who will never say, "I'm sorry." Now think about that. You may have a person in your life now that no matter what happens, they won't just say, "I'm sorry." It's got to be a justification for why they've done what they've done. It could be the most craziest thing. It makes no sense for them to do it. Your hand did not call for it. But they will never just buckle down and say, "You know what, I'm sorry. Let me just move on. I apologize. That's my bad. I own up to it." A lot of times when people can't say, "I'm sorry," they don't accept blame for anything. So a person who will not accept blame for certain things, you got to be careful about those kind of people, because those kind of people may be a toxic person, right? The second thing, these people, toxic people, don't support others. If they don't support you, this person could be toxic. Now, what do I mean by support? I don't mean like automatically a person has to come into your life and automatically they start paying all your bills and taking care of all the the rigmarole or whatever case may be, but we talking about basic stuff. If you have something going on, they're like, okay, that's great. You're going through an issue in your life, they won't take time out of their schedule to support what you're doing. What happens when people don't support you, it makes you feel that despite everything you've shared, that you're alone. They can go through whatever they go through and you might be right there. But the moment something happens, they don't support you. A person could have a cold and you'll be over there bringing them soup, making sure they're good, taking care of, responsibilities. But you could be in a hospital and when you get back, the same person will be hitting you up, or maybe even come through to your crib. Like, "Oh, you good now? Okay." Gotta watch out for that. Anybody who doesn't support you, there's signs of that. There's people, who will be in your corner, claim that they're your people, won't like nothing you post on social media. They won't, if you selling certain things, they trying to get it free. They're not even coming through trying to support you. Hey, maybe even you have an event, they won't show up. And it's not like they're missing it because they had a conflict in schedule. You hit them up and they'll be like, "Oh, I was asleep, I didn't even know." Be mindful of people who don't support you. They could be a toxic person. Number 3, people who don't communicate. Toxic people do not like to communicate, because the deeper you get into that communication, it shows them how a lot of stuff they do is very selfish and very manipulative, very insensitive. And the reason why it takes so much out of them, you hear people, you be draining me, you talking all this stuff, you want to talk all the time. The reason why it's draining is because usually when they're communicating with you, they have to think of a lie as quick as you say something to them to make it seem like they have a position. We've all been with that person who doesn't want to communicate about certain things. If you have an issue, usually it's very simple with two people who are very anxious to work out something. But the person who doesn't want to communicate and just act like nothing happened, I think we've all been there with those people too. The person who did something, y'all didn't speak for a minute, then they hit you about the blue and act like nothing happened. This could be a sign of a toxic person when they don't communicate. Number 4, toxic people don't take accountability. They don't take accountability for nothing. Nothing is ever their fault. They could have caused a 20-car pile up on the highway, and he was like, what I got to do with that? I mean, I was sitting here, I was, doing what I was doing, and all of a sudden you want to blame me for it. They always want to kind of bow out. If something happens in your relationship, or you're dealing with somebody, and they could have been the only person at home, or they left out, they didn't come through when you needed them to be, they'll sit back with, instead of just saying, you know what, my bad, I'm sorry, that was today, I apologize. Like people who aren't toxic and really are invested in you do. They just be like, I had something else to do, or I got what I'm supposed to do, not deal with myself, or I'm into me right now. You gotta be careful about people like that. They won't even address the thought of them being wrong or doing something that could be harmful. They won't even entertain that thought. They won't even entertain, well, maybe I might have done something that could be perceived to be, harmful to this person who I spent time with, or whatever case may be. Be mindful, because toxic people do not take accountability. The last one we're covering today is toxic people don't show empathy. They do not show empathy. Empathy is the ability to get into somebody else's shoes in a different position, right? So they don't care about how you feel. All they care about is either getting what they want, and that could be a lot of things. For men, that could be sex. For women, that could be the money, security, whatever, right? But they don't show empathy. You could be going through certain things, and all they're concerned about is if a woman is, in a corner crying because something traumatic happened to her, a toxic dude who doesn't show empathy, only thing in his mind is, I just wish she just stops crying. This is mad awkward. They don't have no empathy for people. Toxic people do not show empathy. You have to be mindful of people like that, right? So the thing of it is that if you're dealing with somebody with these kind of traits, you may have to think about where you're going, and even more importantly, sometimes, why do you even like this person? A lot of people have great traits, but these traits right here will counteract anything, because if you are not a toxic person, then sometimes you can have a toxic trait too. That relationship will not work, not long term, because ultimately the reason why those toxic traits, those simple traits that seem like they're nothing, turn it into physical and mental abuse down the line is because usually people stay far too long when the signs are right in their face and they should have left a long time ago. When you stay too long, you can't BS yourself through certain things and say, well, maybe they'll change. They're not going to change. Nothing about them is going to change. And see, this is the thing. Also, you have to understand that sometimes a person can be a good person, but because they are not invested in you, they can be toxic toward you. So don't worry about your homegirl that hooked you up with old boy, and she's like, oh, he's a good dude. he can be toxic as hell to you. Don't worry about old girl that came through and said, that's my cousin, she's this, that, third, got a good job, just that, third, she's a Christian woman. She can be toxic as hell to you. Sometimes the hard thing is understanding and separating what you know and what the relationships are from what's actually happening. But that being said, those are 5 signs of a toxic relationship or a toxic person. In that situation, if you do decide that this person is toxic, you know the steps to take. The first step is withdrawing. You need to limit the access that these people have to you. If you're talking to them every day, maybe you need to back that off. Maybe you need to not go out as much. Maybe you need to distance yourself. Maybe you need to sit down and have a conversation and say, listen, I don't need you here. Because at the end of the day, there's nothing worth your peace of mind. My standing rule of dealing with people, we all want to fight through certain things. And sometimes relationships get rough. But when you stop making me smile, it's time for me to go. Because ultimately, you are leisure. That said, I hope that this video can be insightful to somebody. If you know somebody who's going through it and maybe they don't want to hear it from you, maybe they won't accept it from you, maybe they're blinded by their infatuation with a person, because you cannot love a toxic person too. You can't. Impossible. Because love is reciprocal. If they don't reciprocate it, there's no sign of love. There's no possible way you can love that person. If this has been helpful to you or can be helpful to you, please like, share, and subscribe to this video. Hopefully this will keep some of you from staying far too long with people who are toxic to you, who are users, abusers, and you will go out there and find the person of your dreams, the person who's going to treat you the way you need to be treated. With that said, this is your boy Lascel, the M.B.A, coming at you again. And for that, I'm out. See you in 24.